Who will launch the next offensive? In case you are wondering, yes, we are talking about Ukraine. You see, there seems to be a lull over there since Bakhmut. And you may say a lull is good, and I will agree. You see, the lack of an offensive, the absence of deaths and casualties, they are all always welcome. But we need to realize that this silence, the silence in Ukraine, is uneasy. And it is often broken by a deafening question. This one: who will take the next offensive? Because we will be wrong in assuming that there will be none, that there will be no offensive, that there will be no land movement in the coming days, that the war has come to an end, because it has not. You see, there is a stalemate, yes, but this stalemate is temporary at best. The recently leaked US papers confirming what was being speculated for the longest time, that Ukraine is planning a spring offensive. The Ukrainian military will try to repeat what it carried out last autumn, when it reclaimed some lost land. But now that critical data on this offensive has been leaked, are we to assume that Ukraine will put a pause on its plan? Highly unlikely. And I'll tell you why. Because the fact remains that a sizable portion of Ukrainian land remains under Russian occupation. And this has not changed since the data leak. And neither should Ukraine's plan. So will the next offensive by Ukraine? Will the next offensive be Ukraine's is the immediate question. And to answer that, you must ask yourself this question: who benefits from an offensive? Who benefits from asking troops to march ahead? Russia or Ukraine? Let's just quickly recap the war so far. Russia has managed to capture Luhansk, Bakhmut, Donetsk, Mariupol, Melitopol, Zaporizhia, Kherson. And like we have been telling you, Russia has, in a way, managed to split Ukraine into two, divide it along the Dnipro River. It controls the eastern side in totality or in parts. And like we told you earlier this week, Russia has also built a Putin line with which it hopes to protect the gained territory. So does Russia benefit from marching ahead, risking the lives of more men and spending on resources? Hardly. In fact, many would say the Kremlin already has what it wants, which may explain the lull since Bakhmut. Sure, there have been a couple of attacks since, like the recent drone attack on Kiev, or this bizarre instance of a Russian Sukhoi 34 jet striking a Russian city by mistake and leaving the city's governor shell-shocked.
Three people have been injured. One person refused to be taken to the hospital. One resident was diagnosed with a closed head injury and concussion.
This was an airstrike, but when it comes to the ground movement, there hasn't been any since Bakhmut. And the ball now falls on Ukraine's court. Does Kiev benefit from an offensive? More than we can explain. In fact, one could say Ukraine needs a ground offensive, a spring offensive. Let's just pull out the map once again. All of these cities are under Russian control, and their occupation has cut off Ukraine from much of the Red Sea, something that Ukraine will look to claw back. But if this offensive is to happen in spring, it needs to happen now, for it is almost the end of April. So what is the holdup all about? Weapons. In fact, reports say that in late March, Zelensky sent a message on his Telegram. He said that Ukraine will not be able to begin a counteroffensive until the West sends weapons, more weapons. And what kind of weapons does Ukraine need? Everything. Starting from bullets to tanks to rocket artillery. In fact, the West has already promised a lot of weapons, from German-made Leopard tanks to American Patriot missiles and Abrams tanks. But you see, just a fraction of what has been promised has actually arrived, and that's not enough for Ukraine to go charging to the front lines. In March, by the way, Zelensky told a Japanese paper, Yomiuri Shimbun, I'm quoting, "We are waiting for ammunition to arrive from our partners. We cannot send our brave soldiers to the front line without tanks, artillery, and long-range rockets." What if those weapons don't arrive on time? Should Ukraine be prepared for Plan B? Settle for the new reality. What some analysts have been speculating for a while, where the eastern part of the Dnipro remains under Russian control and the remaining country eventually goes on to join the NATO. The military alliance could already be preparing for such a possibility.
I said in Kiev yesterday that Ukraine's future is in the Euro-Atlantic family, and all NATO allies have agreed that Ukraine will become a NATO member. But the main focus now is, of course, on how to ensure that Ukraine prevails.
Where it goes from here is anybody's guess. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.